want to jump gears. Impeachment is on the scene, and a guy that y'all know him. He's a Congressman, Mike Johnson. Mike, I got to tell you, man, and me and Brandon talked about it, man. You have done an excellent job of not just defending the president, more importantly, defending the Constitution, and really going back at one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in the country run by the Democrats, impeachment of President Donald Trump. First of all, good morning, and thank you so much for the fight.
Hey, Moon, thanks for saying that, and thanks for framing it that way. That's exactly what we've been trying to communicate. It really shouldn't matter whether anybody in this country likes Donald Trump or not, whether they support him or not. This is about the Constitution. And the point we kept trying to make in these marathon hearings in the House Judiciary Committee is that the founders of this country, you have to think about the importance, the weight of history and what we're doing here. The founders said you should never have a single party impeachment. This is the first one in the history of the country, Moon. And the reason they said that is because they said, obviously, it will divide the nation. It will divide the people maybe irreparably. That's right. And so what the Democrats are doing right now is they're weaponizing impeachment. They're trying to get rid of Donald Trump because they don't like him. And that's not how this system is designed to work.
Yeah, but Mike, some of the things that you said, and I want you to talk a little bit about some of the things that you brought up, and just off the top of your head, because we sat there and watched it. We got an opportunity to play some of it on the air the other day. Me and Brandon watched in between, and we just kept marveling that you really did a great job of explaining how the Democrats have nothing. You can't impeach somebody with nothing, yet they're going to go through with this insanity.
They are.
It's insanity what they did. It's insane.
It's insanity. It's politically, I think it's malpractice on their part. It's clearly going to backfire on them at the polls. They're going to pay a heavy political price. But the greater concern and the overarching, the real threat here is what is the Pandora's box that this thing opens and has opened now. And that's what we kept warning about, is that once you go down this road, you can't put this genie back in the bottle. See, now, from now on, every time a president is in office and the opposing party is the majority in the House, there's going to be an outcry. There's going to be torches and pitchforks, and people are going to demand that we impeach him or her, right? And you can't run a republic that way, and that's the problem. And so what I tried to do in my arguments in the judiciary, I wanted a real debate because, I prepared for it like a trial, like I'm trained to do. You have to look at the merits of this thing, and it's ridiculous. They came forward after all those hearings in the basement, after all the charade and the, Adam Schiff down there engineering the whole thing and cherry picking witnesses and releasing only experts he wanted. Even though they rigged the system, they could only come up with 2 articles of impeachment. And historically, as our one expert said, they gave us one expert witness in the whole series, Professor Turley, and he said, his famous quote was, "This is the shortest proceeding with the thinnest evidentiary record and the narrowest grounds ever used to try to impeach a president." And that's right. And that's why everybody needs to understand what's at stake here.
Yeah, and I think eventually Congressman Mike Johnson, my special guest. And Mike, the thing about it is that, this is not being that well watched. Nobody wants to go through this. But the left's insanity of beating this man, and I'm telling you what, the Democrat Party, they talk about hate groups. My words, not yours. I think they become the ultimate hate group. If you don't line up with everything they want, they hate you, and they're going to hate you on the air, they're going to hate you on the media, and they're going to hate on you every way they can because you don't line up with what they're doing, and that's what I think's happening right here.
That's what this is, and as I kind of lost my cool at about hour 12 of the hearing, and sadly that's the excerpt that's gone the most viral. That's not my style normally, but I just kind of hit my limit with it. Moon, it was so ridiculous. I kept hearing these House Democrats, one after the other, saying, basically what they're saying is Donald Trump is a danger to the Constitution. He's a danger to the country. Why? Tell me why. Oh, because, we don't like the way he communicates, or we don't like some of his political or policy decisions. Well, give me a break. We didn't like Obama's policy decisions, the way he communicated, but we didn't try to impeach him.
By the way, y'all didn't even impeach. He used the IRS against people. They look like now they use the Department of Justice against people. They use the FBI against people. They use the Attorney General against people. When Eric Holder said, I'm Obama's wingman. All the things you could impeach him. And, of course, no media to help do that. Boy, the media is right there to help beat on Trump.
That's exactly right. And there's this new Monmouth University poll that came out. 6 out of 10 Americans believe Democrats in Congress are more interested in bringing down Donald Trump than pursuing the facts. And a plurality of Americans, at least 45%, have no trust at all in the House impeachment proceedings. Gee, I wonder why. Well, as we pointed out at the hearing, before the July 25th phone call between President Trump and President Zelensky, which is supposedly the reason for this whole charade, before that date, 95 House Republicans already voted to impeach Donald Trump. He hadn't even committed the acts that supposedly triggered this. We have 24 Democrats in the House Judiciary Committee. 17 of them voted already to impeach Donald Trump before July of this year, before these events ever took place. So, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but in all fairness, they wanted to impeach him when he won. They even said that. They wanted to impeach him, and the media is right there helping. You know, my big problem with it, too, is once the media picks a side and goes with it, especially the left side, countries usually buckle and fall because they're not doing their job. They're just doing the job of the political side. They're not doing their real job, is to keep everybody honest, up front and keep people straight with the Constitution. I mean, their job, they act like freedom of speech is, let me take sides.
Well, that's exactly right. And let me tell you, we probably just have a minute or two left. Let me tell you what, I mean, I can go as long as you can this morning, but here's the thing. I want all of your listeners, because your folks are savvy, they get it, and everybody needs to be able to argue the merits of this thing. I mean, the procedure was crazy, and we all know that, but the substantive merits, the Democrats have nothing here. And let me, real quick summary of both. They have 2 articles of impeachment, right? The first one is they say that the president has abused his power. Well, that's a joke, because all they have in all the proceedings, all they ever presented was hearsay, speculation, and conjecture. They're trying to say that he leaned on Ukraine to start an investigation of his political rival. But there are 4 important facts there that everybody needs to know. Number 1, Trump and Zelensky both said no pressure was exerted in that July 25th phone call. Number 2, the July call transcript shows clearly there was no conditionality between the aid funding and any investigation. Number 3, Ukraine wasn't even aware that the aid was being delayed when the president spoke. And number 4, Ukraine never opened an investigation. They still got the military aid, and they got a meeting with Donald Trump. So there's no facts at all for number 1. The second article of impeachment is they're trying to say that he obstructed Congress. That one's even more absurd than the first, because what they're trying to say is because Donald Trump wouldn't willingly turn over all of his high-ranking advisors and his direct communications and everything, the laundry list on the fishing expedition they were after, that he's somehow guilty of a high crime and misdemeanor and should be impeached. It's absurd. Everybody needs to know this simple fact. Every president in the modern era has done exactly the same thing. Barack Obama, in the Fast and Furious investigation, Congress wanted all sorts of documents and witness, and he wouldn't do it. So what was the remedy? Congress didn't impeach Barack Obama. They went to the courts. That's what this is for. When you have a juxtaposition between the legislative and executive branch, as those things will always develop in a constitutional republic, the impasse is broken by the third branch of government, that's the judiciary. And they were supposed to go down to a court and get a court order to compel the production of that discovery if they wanted it. But they didn't do that. And here's why, Moon, because they promised their liberal base they would get an impeachment by Christmas. That's why we're here, and that's why this is so absurd.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Mike Johnson, Congressman Mike Johnson. Hey, Mike, let me take a break. I'll come back, and if you don't mind, a 4-minute break and come back with about 7-8 minutes. Ask you a couple more questions. Congressman Mike Johnson, who has been fighting the good fight, I'm going to say not for Trump. He's been fighting the good fight for the United States of America and for the Constitution and for the merits of the Constitution that the Democrats don't care about. All right, we'll take a break. Be right back. You're listening to the Moon Griffon Show. Hi, y'all. Welcome back. Moon Griffon Show. Congressman Mike Johnson fighting the battle for the Constitution of the United States of America and fighting this ludicrous impeachment thing. I guess, Mike, when it comes down to it, Congressman, it depends on what side you're on, what you agree with. But, if life was fair, and it's not, what should happen is if they're impeaching, we should win. Republicans ought to win the House by 60 votes. The Senate should be 60 Senate seats, and Trump ought to easily win re-election in a fair world. because these guys have even the whole process, all the secret meetings with Schiff, all that stuff that's been done. It's just none of it's been upfront and upfront where American people could see it. I just don't think it's been at all.
No, it clearly hasn't, and that's what everybody has to remember. If you compare this to the previous impeachment efforts, and there's only been 3 in the history of the country. Now, remember, the full House has only ever, in 243 years, voted to impeach 2 presidents. It was Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton. Richard Nixon resigned before that could happen. But this thing in the modern era, right? You compare this to Nixon and Clinton. This impeachment has been run 20 times faster in the impeachment investigation of Bill Clinton. And the reason they did it is, again, because they put this arbitrary, totally Machiavellian timeline on themselves, the House Democrats, because they promised impeachment as a Christmas present to their liberal base, right? So that's why they had to put the thing on fast forward. And along the way, Moon, they steamrolled over every constitutionally guaranteed due process that exists. All the House rules, all the federal rules of civil procedure. They ignored and blocked exculpatory evidence. They intimidated witnesses. They restricted Republican lines of questioning down in the basement. They denied defense witnesses. They denied the involvement of the president's counsel early on. They wouldn't even let us review the evidence. I mean, I'm on House Judiciary. This is the committee that actually has jurisdiction over impeachment. I still haven't seen all the evidence they gathered in the basement because I'm not allowed to. How ridiculous is that?
Wow.
They denied minority hearing. They violated notice and fairness at all stages. This thing is absurd, and everybody can see it.
Well,
and
let me
that's
ask
why
you a
the
question.
frustration level is so high.
So they impeach him, and they go to the Senate, which you're not in the Senate. I understand this. What really happens with this? You think this is something they're going to try in a week and then be done with it? Is something they're going to drag out for 6 months? I mean, what's really going to happen on that side? What are the people telling you which will probably happen? Because you may not know everything that's going to happen, but you got to know some of what you're hearing.
I'm involved in some of these substantive conversations. I can ask that same question on all the interviews yesterday, CNN, MSNBC. Here's what I believe. I would actually like to see an extended trial. I really would, because I don't think the president has been given due process at all. I think he has a right to put his case on, to show the other side of this story. And without a full trial, he may never get the chance to do that. On the other hand, as I had to acknowledge on national television a couple of times yesterday, I am genuinely, deeply concerned about the divide that is being perpetuated in this country. And because we already know the outcome of this thing, there's no merit to it. There's no way you're going to get a sufficient number of Republicans to cross the line and impeach Donald Trump. The outcome's already known. So does it behoove us as a people to drag this out for 2 or 3 months? I mean, I don't know. As much as I'd love to hear from Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and the whistleblower, I don't know if it's worth it for the division that it would create for the country. So I'm really torn on the question.
Yeah, well, I'm just kind of curious because I can understand both sides. It's ridiculous we're even having this, but as you know, they're going to impeach him. I mean, it's just no doubt they're going to probably do it. They'll probably do it this week. I remember when they passed Obamacare.
We're going to have a vote on Wednesday.
Well, they had Obamacare when they passed that. It was a Christmas gift. Mary Landrieu shot us down in that, and then that was all bipartisan, and that's been a disaster in a lot of places, financially especially. And so we're going to get another disaster right before this Christmas, it looks like.
It is, and Moon, this will not be this. I mean this sincerely. It's a single party impeachment. The only bipartisan thing about this is that you're going to have Democrats that vote with us, with the Republicans, because they just look at this and they cannot, in good conscience, vote to say these are impeachable.
Well, I did see where one congressman said he's leaving and Democrats going to Republicans. Now, I saw he's had some staff people quit, but to be honest with you, if I was going from the leftist, socialist, nutted up Democrats into a Republican, I'd have fired all my staff. I'd have just fired them all on the spot, and they got me a whole new staff because I wouldn't want the Looney Tunes all in there because no telling what they would do.
Well, that's Van Drew. He looks like he's going to switch parties, and that leaves 30 remaining Democrats who are in these swing districts that Donald Trump won pretty handily in 2016, and they're in a real bind now. And Pelosi and Nadler and Schiff have put them in that bind because they're going home. They're hearing from constituents. Everybody who looks at this objectively sees it exactly the same way as I've described, because it is just completely empty. And they know that this is a political vendetta, that you have these Democrat committee chairs that have had a political agenda against Donald Trump. I mean, well announced, as you said, they started saying this the day he took his oath of office. It's no surprise to anybody. And I think that at the end of the day, people see this for what it is. The ultimate objective of the Democrats is to nullify the votes of the 63 million Americans who voted to elect Donald Trump our president. They don't like him. They don't like his supporters. And they're rigging the system to try to get rid of him. And there's a heavy price to pay for this.
This will be a little off subject, but, Cedric Richmond's in that committee, sees it totally different than you, and it's a shame. John Bello was won election. He's going to have everything to do with redistricting, and he would like to take the 6th congressman and turn one more into a liberal Democrat congressman, so I guess they can go vote for abortion and vote to impeach presidents. Because we're getting ready to watch that try to happen, play out in the next couple of years on redistricting. And that would be scary. I'd rather have a Mike Johnson than a Cedric Richmond any day. I just think you've been very fair. As a matter of fact, it was funny. I read a story that Cedric Richmond was watching the golf game during impeachment. So I guess he had made up his mind. He made up his mind before he ever went there. He was enjoying a round of golf while impeachment was going on. He had to apologize for it because he was watching a golf game.
Yeah, well, look, I mean,
at least you in it. At least you in it.
Yeah, but I mean, look, Cedric is a smart guy. He's a good guy. He's a friend of mine, right? I mean, he was bored by the crazy arguments going on the other side as everybody else watching at home was. But
between you and me, he said some of the stupid things. Anyway, criticized for watching golf during Trump impeachment here, and he's really into it. Already knows how he's going to vote. All right, Mike Johnson, Congressman, thank you, Mike. Keep up the good work.
Hey, Moon, my Facebook and Twitter feed is Rep Mike Johnson. I'm trying to cover this step by step to help people with their arguments. So, Rep Mike Johnson, you can follow it there and we'll help.
Thank you, bud. Good luck. We'll be right back.